The Nottingham Lace Market Case Study by Nisa, Lisa, Sam, Dan and Mohammed. Nottingham has a rich and varied history for the past 1,000 years, with civil war, legends, riots and more. But for the past century, its staple industry has been lace manufacturing. In 1739, the demand for lace was so high that there were 2,000 people living in 500 houses located on 18 streets directly off of the lace market, working within the sector, and still the industry continued to boom. In 1832, there were 186 lace manufacturers and 70 hosiery manufacturers, of which 66 were located within the lace market. We are aware of the regeneration of the lace market, and that lace is not a big manufacturer there anymore. For investigation, we will be using techniques such as questionnaires, photographs, old maps and archives, new regeneration plans and sketches. The lace market physical context shows Nottingham is in the East Midlands, 52 miles from Birmingham and 128 miles from London. The city centre lies between two hills. On one hill, Nottingham Castle is located, and on the other, St Mary's Church is found. The lace market is located to the east of the city centre. Building height in the lace market is similar to the city centres in character, ranging from 3 to 6 stories high, most of them in Georgian and Victorian styles. Due to the Listings Act, a new building has to retain the image of a red brick area. The lace market's factories have largely been converted into offices, academic buildings, bars, restaurants, and residential areas aimed at students and young professionals. The regeneration plan of Nottingham sees the lace market as a completely regenerated part of the city. The layout of the lace market sees it focused around St Mary's Church. The lace market zone shows a street layout virtually untouched for the last 200 years. Due to changing fashions in the 1700s, the lace and hosiery industry changed from predominantly being performed in small workshops within the owners' homes to give way to large factories and warehouses devoted to the manufacture of lace. Many of the imposing factories still remain today, although they share occupancy. All new buildings, mostly apartments and offices, have kept the same sense of scale, which has made the lace market a unique and grand aesthetic for a small area. In the past 10 to 15 years, the lace market became the place for retail spaces as the rent was low. The area also benefits from creative ecology made up by independent creative communities in the form of painters, sculptors and installation makers, and the new Nottingham Contemporary. This creativity is being continued by the students in the area, who have a dominating presence within the lace market. Due to the area focusing on encouraging young professionals and students to live in loft-style apartments, the lace market is shifting towards a nighttime economy, with even a deconsecrated church converted into a bar and restaurant. In the 1800s, Nottingham was a modest market town, thriving from the export of religious sculpture. However, from then until the 1850s, saw the boom in the lace market, and the population of Nottingham increased in a way similar to that of the national average. From the 1850s to the 1900s, there was a vast increase in population. 182,000 people migrated to Nottingham. However, the city did not expand in size. It instead chose to reclaim common land within the city to build on. Because of the high overcrowding, the population growth eventually declined to below the national average, and Nottingham began to grow, easing the pressure of overcrowding. Today, Nottingham ranks as the United Kingdom's 7th largest city. As a wider study, the lace industry's effect on the whole of Nottingham have been investigated. 3 sites have been picked, the first being within the lace market, the second on the city's outskirts, and the third site is within the Nottingham suburbs. Site 1 is the most affected, with the reputation and prestige of the lace market still intact. The architecture has industrial feel, however, it has ornate details which come from a wealthier time, with patterned iron railings, gas lamps and terracotta details. The old warehouses that have been allowed to fall into disrepair during the many recessions have been renovated to allow them to be seen as luxury, desired locations. The second site has undergone a huge change in its recent history due to the knock-on effect of overcrowding from Nottingham. The city centre location had once been common land until the Enclosure Act of 1845, which allowed the city to take back 4.3 kilometres squared of land. On the city built nearly 10,000 back-to-back dwellings. The clearance of these houses started in the 1960s, and new houses began to be built in the 70s and 80s. The final site is the Park Estate suburb, a 0.61 kilometres squared private residential area located in the former Deer Park of Nottingham. In the 1820s, mansions began to be built within this area to accommodate the wealthy factory owners who wanted to be segregated from the increasing number of poor factory workers. Today, the Park Estate has still the remarkable Victorian Gothic mansions, however they have been converted into apartments. The areas have a clear residential grid, however the further out of the city centre, the greener the area become, with private gardens. The house prices of these areas have also been affected by the reputations, with the residential areas in the Lace Market averaging around £120,000 to £150,000 for a historic building with a contemporary internal high-specification flat. Within the city centre, the modern council houses are undesired due to the proximity of each house and the antisocial behaviour connected. They are currently valued around £50,000. Finally, the historic Park Estate converted flats are valued at £130,000 to £180,000, with the existing mansions selling for as high as £1.6 million, much above the average for Nottingham. The politics of Nottingham in recent years have seen the bounce from Labour, Conservative, Labour and back to Conservative. Within each of the parties' terms, there have been acts of social discourse, most recently the 2011 riots. However, this back and forth between the parties has left many planners worried about the regeneration of the city. One driver behind the city's regeneration has been the Nottingham Regeneration Limited Group, a non-profit organisation working within both the private and public sector. There were talks of the NRL being dismantled within the new coalition. However, the funding for the projects have been in large swapped from public funding to private, allowing for the regeneration to continue and more jobs to be provided. The economics of Nottingham have increased and decreased along with the average within the United Kingdom. The decline of the lace market started with World War I. One of the largest firms at the time, Thomas Adams Limited, was owed around £180,000 that the firm had to write off from enemy countries. With exporting goods curtailed and home demand low, many of the lace market's firms had to move into other industries, sell their premises or go into liquidation. The next catastrophe was the 1929 Depression. In Nottingham, the lace market industry had been divided into lace makers and manufacturers. This distinction disappeared. During this time, only 120 firms remained in or in the adjoining lace market. The 1920s to 30s showed alternate industries opening within the lace market, for example, printers, booksellers, engravers, cardboard box manufacturing, colliery furnishers, manufacturing chemists or other textile manufacturers moved into the factories once used to produce the lace. Furthermore, in World War II, the lace industry was adapted to make mosquito nets and camouflage. In 1941, some of the buildings on Short Hill and St Mary's Gates were damaged in an air raid. Due to the unavailability of resources in this time, many buildings were allowed to fall into disrepair. The 1950s saw the end of an era when high-speed machines were used in the manufacture of lace. These machines needed new premises away from the city centre due to their... After the buildings were left in a poor state and being unused, some of them began to be demolished. Giving the lace market a new look, there were proposals to widen Stony Street, but then the listed building legislation was passed. As previously discussed, the area is now mostly listed and has been created into a highly desirable area to reside and work in. Throughout Nottingham's history, it is clear that the lace industry has been a major factor in the shaping of the city's current topography, albeit through the forming of huge social divides based on wealth. The growth in the lace industry, caused by innovations in technology, Nottingham's access to raw materials, and the trend in fashion brought about by Queen Victoria's mourning, encouraged the wealthy to build factories. However, the wealth of the city remained in the hands of the minority, leaving most of Nottingham's population living in appalling housing conditions which can be seen in similar industrial cities at that time, such as Birmingham and Manchester. The First World War marked the beginning of the decline in the lace industry that would continue to the present day. Economic depression, followed a Second World War, meant that resources and customers were scarce and many of the industries disappeared. In the latter half of the 20th century, lace found itself having to compete with man-made fibres, which were both cheaper and easier to produce. Today the lace market in Nottingham is a collection of historical and architectural relics that pay homage to the affluent past. New developments have kept in sympathy with the grand style of architecture, creating an area with a unique aesthetic within the city. The poorer quality housing from the time, namely the back-to-back houses, which are now gone, leaving behind a very vibrant and energetic city. The lace market has limited space for further development, and it is a conservation area, which has a number of listed buildings. The area has already survived the threat of falling into dereliction, and has undergone a large amount of regeneration. The current developers, Nottingham Regeneration Limited, are working with the local council to promote the area further, ensuring the lace market will retain its identity and reputation in years to come.